Hello and welcome back to this channel. Today I thought I would sit down and just do like a really random, quick, very much unplanned video. And this is going to be talking about, well, this is on the back of me being out and about at our homeschool meetup with these like beautiful, wild, intuitive, just really truly embodied children enjoying themselves and watching them climb freely, make mistakes, fall, listen to their bodies, my own children included. And then when I got home, I was having a conversation with my husband. You could tell I've got a cold, sorry. I'm a little bit bunged up. I was having a conversation with my husband about how beautiful it is and how difficult it is to be the bystander, to watch these little kids who are so teeny tiny and still very much learning about themselves and their bodies, doing these difficult things, climbing up the high rocks, getting stuck in the trees, climbing into small spaces or going down slidey things, getting stuck in the mud, and how we got to a place of ease with it. How it is and why it is that we feel comfortable letting our children do risky things, and what are the benefits of letting them do risky things carefully and what is the difference there, and what phrases do we utilize and use on an everyday, every moment basis, I would say, with our two very wild boys that have helped them to become more aware of their bodies, to do things more safely. And spoiler alert, it isn't, rather, be careful. Be careful is not one of those phrases, so make a guess before we go to the next little portion on what those phrases are. If you've listened to that long and rambly intro, thank you so much, and thank you for being here. And if you are curious about the way that we parent, I have an entire like gentle parenting playlist, but generally I talk about things like trying to conceive, pregnancy, birth, breastfeeding, infant care, that sort of thing. Although every now and then I scatter in a little like parenting content. So this has been very much, this is a very much random video, but I hope that you enjoy it. Let me know in the comments down below if you like this type of video, and I'm going to dive straight into the benefits of risky play. Okay, so why do we practice or allow our kids to practice risky play? Number one is that I want my children to inherently trust their body, their feeling of safety in their body over anyone else. That's me included. And if I'm not allowing them to tap into that feeling, how on earth can they possibly trust it? So that's the number one. Number two is being mama of two boys who move their bodies so much in space. That is how they learn. I've been doing a lot of research on risky play. Why is that important? And in particular, trying the hard things and the falling. Why is that important? And the lovely research that I came up with, actually I believe it's a German study, which I'll try and link below, showed that risky play, falling, making the mistakes, hurting themselves, needs to be done at least twice before that message, that sort of neural programming, takes place for a child or a younger adult to realize that that is no longer something they should be doing. And so if we are always stopping our children from trying the hard things, from climbing a tree, from going, across a puddle that is very, very wide, and, stopping them from jumping that because we think that they can't do it, all we are doing is missing out on that learning opportunity for them and giving them a sense or feeling that if we don't trust them, then they surely can't trust themselves. So that is why we do risky play. There's some lovely new evidence coming out around this, and in particular, they are starting to build these like risky play areas in other countries where there are like maybe playgrounds that actually you can fall and hurt yourself from. They're not always like, you know, super soft ground, or then some maybe a little bit higher than others, and maybe that like the stretch required between the bars is that little bit longer, and it requires a little bit more thinking and a little bit more constructive movement. That is not to say, so follow-up point, that is why we do it. This is not to say that it's easy. There's nothing more difficult than sitting back and not being, you know, a really keen catcher, you know, ready to like catch their fall or to stop them doing what they're doing. There's nothing more difficult than sitting back and letting your child do something risky. And for me, the big thing in being able to help them and let that happen has been letting them do it. Initially being close by, if that felt safer for me, being a spotter as such, and just trying to not touch their bodies, and remembering my why. Why is this important that I allow our children to do this? And the more I allowed them to do it, the safer they became. And knowing that the difference between risky play, where they are throwing their bodies around the place and not really thinking carefully about what they're doing, versus doing something risky or possibly dangerous safely, is huge. So if I see my 2-year-old very carefully navigating maybe what would be considered like a 4 or 5-year-old's PlayStation in the playground, and doing that with great care and caution and awareness with his body, I'm okay with that. Versus maybe a movement that he is doing that is not safe, that he is rushing himself through because he's not looking what he's doing, or he's trying to catch his brother and he's racing through something, and maybe requires a little bit of prompting, which we'll talk about in the next one. So letting your kids do hard things safely should be encouraged. So the final piece of this very rambly, waffly video is just to talk about the differences between constantly saying, be careful, or, you know, you shouldn't be doing that, and, you know, constantly sort of guarding them and spotting them in a way that's actually unhelpful, versus constructive or maybe more focused guidance. So I wrote down the phrases that both Pete and I use, me maybe more, some more than others. The first one that I like that comes to mind is, how does that feel? So to getting them to like check in on their bodies. So does it feel wobbly? Does it feel very high? Does it feel steady? The next one that I like to think about is, use your hands on your feet. So I will remind them and prompt them if they are climbing something maybe really steep, maybe they're climbing like a cliff face at the beach. And yeah, my kids do that. I put that up on Instagram recently and I got a lot of responses being like, oh my gosh, like Archer's only just 2, how are you letting him do that and not like dying? And it's because he does it so often. And yeah, generally I'm at the bottom where there's like, you know, he does it so that I know that he's doing it safely. And so one of the prompts that I will guide him to use, or prompt him to use, is to use your hands and your feet instead of trying to scale it and then falling face first. So that is a huge one. Some of the ones that Pete will use a little bit more frequently than I will be, do you feel safe? So just checking in again with their bodies. What is your plan for getting down? And this is huge. I don't let my kids climb something and then rescue them at the top. I let them or help them or support them in navigating the down part, because typically getting down from a tree or a high place is much more difficult than the getting up part. So I will always ask, like, what is your plan? So I'll ask them, like, as they're halfway up or just as they're about to mount this big thing, what's your plan for getting down? The next thing that I like to ask them is, like, you know, particularly with the older kids, is like, what's your risk assessment here? Like, hey, it looks like you're about to try and get across this river. Like, what do you think? Do you think the water looks like it's quite fast? How deep do you think it is? How about we try and test that? Have you got a long stick? Let's go and see how deep it is. Do you want to maybe throw, you know, a stick in and see how fast it moves? What do you think? Do you want to maybe dip a foot in and see whether it's going to go over your welly boot? How do you feel about being wet? We don't have a change of clothes. And being able to do that risk assessment with our kids as opposed to for our kids means that after a few times of doing it with them, they do it themselves. So in a way it's lazy parenting, but I also think that it gives them the tools to be able to assess a situation and the safety of a situation for the rest of their lives. So it's beyond important. This has been a very long and waffly video. I hope that you found it helpful, and if you enjoy having children who are able to explore safely and have found this video has given you some tips or tricks, let me know. And if you like this kind of video, I would love to make more of them, and thank you for being here.